Flash games were the pinnacle of quick fun. They're free, you don't have to download them, and there's a seemingly infinite number to choose from. Some are better than others, of course, but the Warfare series stands tall above the majority. Warfare 1917 and Warfare 1944 belong to the other series by Con Artist Games. Con Artist Games, of course, spearheaded not just one S-tier Flash game series, but two, which is nothing short of remarkable. Warfare is a real-time strategy game with added progression elements. Today we're going to explore all of those great features and mechanics that make these games so much fun to play. We're going to start with Warfare 1917, as this is the first game in the series. The setting is World War I, of course, and as we start a new game, we could do one of two different campaigns. We can play the normal campaign as the British, or the hard campaign as the Germans. We're going to be using the British side for this video. The German side works the same way, except that some of the troops are a bit different, and you are on the opposite end of the battlefield. The game starts simple enough. You have one troop type, which is riflemen, and you send them across the battlefield with the goal of depleting the enemy's morale to the point you make them surrender, or by taking the enemy's ground. Not only will you have the enemy troops trying to slow you down, but the field will have some hurdles mixed in as well, like barbed wire and landmines. Morale and ground coverage are both clearly displayed at the top of the screen for you and the enemy. However, they have the same goal as you do, and you have no control over your troops' morale outside of making good decisions. And what I mean by that is you can't make your troops stay and fight when they're ready to give up. They'll surrender on their own. And the only way to prevent that is by making good decisions and playing the game well. The tools at your disposal are the various troop types, air support abilities, and trenches, and knowing when you should and shouldn't use them is really the meat of the game. And you can supplement your arsenal with different perks that you unlock with upgrade points that you'll acquire along the way. As you progress through the game, you will unlock new troop types and air support abilities, and the first troop you'll unlock is called Assault, as well as the Mortar Shells air support ability. The Assault troop consists of 4 soldiers, and they use rush tactics and bombs, and these troops are strong against enemies that are entrenched, and they're average against armored enemies. And the mortar shells are the weakest air support ability, and they work best against soldiers that are out in the open, but you can use them against anyone. The trenches can be held by either side, and they only have a few functions. They can hold 3 sets of troops, they provide defensive cover, and they can be locked and unlocked. If you lock a trench, our units will no longer occupy them automatically, and they will instead pass right through them and continue forward. This is useful if you are near the enemy side of the battlefield and you don't want to have to manually advance your troops out of trenches as you spawn them in. Next, you'll unlock the machine gunner troop. This is one of my personal favorite troop types. It consists of 3 soldiers, a soldier with a big machine gun, and 2 more soldiers with rifles. This troop type is best utilized from inside of a trench and fighting against infantry that are out in the open. Then you will unlock the sniper unit and the artillery strike ability. The sniper unit consists of a single soldier with a long-range rifle. These units are good against all infantry types, whether they are entrenched or out in the open. However, if the enemy gets within range to fire back at the sniper will die very easily. And the artillery strike is when you need to call in the heavies. These are good against all units, whether they're entrenched or not, and they'll just absolutely decimate whatever the target is. Next, you'll unlock the officer unit and the gas rounds ability. The officer unit consists of a single soldier that provides a morale boost to nearby allies. The morale boost is pretty small, and this is my least favorite troop type. The gas rounds air support ability is pretty good though. This is great to drop down onto enemies that are entrenched. The final troop type to unlock is the tank unit. It's just a single slow-moving tank, but it's plenty powerful and devastating to all enemy types. The final air support ability are the anti-tank rounds. I found that the best time to use these is when the enemy has multiple tanks close to each other like this. So that's every troop type and air support ability in 1917. When you send out any of the troop units, a cooldown will begin until you can use that troop type again, and anytime you activate any of the troops, a cooldown timer will reset for all the other troop types. The cooldowns also apply to the air support abilities, but using one won't reset the timers of the others. And I mentioned perks earlier, but there are 2 perk trees that you can choose from when spending upgrade points: a perk tree for your troops and a perk tree for your air support abilities. All of the troops and abilities can be upgraded to improve their effectiveness through the use of these perks, and that's essentially how the campaign works. You go from level to level, unlocking new troops, abilities, and perks along the way while trying to defeat the enemy. The skirmish setup is pretty straightforward as well. You can customize the battle in a variety of ways by deciding how big the map is, how many trenches there are, what troop types are included, among other things. It's fine for what it is, but I prefer to play the campaigns. That's basically everything you need to know about Warfare 1917. Warfare 1944, though, is the true standout of the 2 games. 1944 takes the core gameplay loop from 1917, but takes place in World War II, obviously, and turns up the dial on almost every feature and then adds some new mechanics on top of that. There's 3 big changes with 1944. The first is the introduction to supply resources. In 1917, everything you did was free, and you didn't have to spend any resources for calling in troops or air support. But in 1944, everything costs a specific amount of supply. Supply generates automatically, and you get 200 every 8 seconds by default. The second big change is the addition of lanes. These lanes have a few core functions and rules. In 1917, whenever you sent troops to the battlefield, they would kind of follow a random flow across the field and could attack anyone else anywhere on the field as long as they were close enough. However, in 1944, the maps are split up into 3 horizontal lanes. So when you deploy a troop, you have to select a lane to send them down, and they will follow that lane to the end with no way of switching. Additionally, you can only attack troops in your own lane and the lane next to your lane. So troops in the top lane cannot attack troops in the bottom lane, and this next bit applies to the top and bottom lanes only, not the center lane. But if you send troops down either of these 2 lanes and they reach the end, they will effectively flank the enemy and give them a nice hit to their morale. But the center lane works differently. When you reach the end of it, instead of flanking the enemy, you win by essentially taking the enemy's ground. And the troops work differently as well. I use the word different instead of improved because there's pros and cons to the changes. Your troops are unlocked as you progress, just like before, and they still have cooldowns as well, just like before. However, now they have manual abilities. You have abilities like suppress fire and throwing grenades. In 1917, your assault troops would choose when they throw grenades automatically. You don't have to aim or choose a target or anything like that. You just decide when to use it and the troop will do the rest. This gives you more control, and I personally prefer this method of grenades. Troops also have their own options for advancing. I don't really have any preference on this change. Both methods seem fine to me. It seems like it's just a matter of clicking on the troop versus clicking on the trench. You have all of the same troops from 1917 in this game as well, with a few new ones. The first new troop is the mortar unit, which consists of a single lone soldier and his mortar. He works exactly like you would expect him to. And there's the anti-tank troop, which consists of 2 units, a soldier with a bazooka and another with a rifle, and he also works exactly like you would expect him to. And the third big change to the game is how the air support abilities work. In 1917, you had a second action bar with all of your air support abilities on it. However, in 1944, your air support is spread out more. For example, your Mortar Strike ability from 1917 has been replaced by the Mortar Troop, and the Anti-Tank ability has also been replaced by a troop. The Artillery Strike ability is still present in 1944 though. However, to use the ability, you need to first call in an officer for 300 supply, and the officer has an ability to call in the airstrike for another 300 supply. So they're still present in the game, they just work a little differently. All in all, 1944 is my favorite of the two, not just because of the improved systems and mechanics, but also because of the map variety. The levels in 1917 were very similar to each other, and 1944 has a few that are very different from the rest of them, and I especially enjoyed the town-based levels. I had a lot of fun rediscovering this series. I forgot all about it, but I had come across it when I was researching The Last Stand for the other video I just did. But thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, farewell.